Hi, everybody, and welcome to Season 1, Episode 16 of Power Networking Media's weekly feature program, Spotlight on Small Business. I'm your host, Moshe Klein. Spotlight on Small Business introduces you to successful small business owners who share content and information that you don't want to miss. And today I'm very excited to welcome my friend and networking partner, Craig Nadborne, to the program. Craig is the Senior Managing Director at Bradford Allen, and he's a tenant representative. So, Craig, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Moshe. Really glad to be here. This should be fun.
It will be fun. That, if I have anything to say about it, that's for sure. Craig, I have to ask you for the benefit of our viewers. When I first met you, I didn't know exactly what a tenant representative means. What is that? So, what does the senior managing director at Bradford Allen and a tenant representative do all day? Tell us in user-friendly terms.
Sure. Well, happy to. I'm a real estate broker in the state of Illinois. And in the world of office leasing, there's always two sides. There's the landlord who's trying to get a tenant to move into the building, and there's the tenant who's looking to move in and get the best deal possible. When you drive up and down the streets, you see signs in front of the buildings. Usually those have a name and a phone number on it. That's the broker that represents the landlord. So I like to say that's this side of the transaction. I'm this side. I'm the quiet side. I'm kind of the invisible person. I'm the tenant reps representative, and I'm the person that has the fiduciary responsibility to get the best transaction possible on behalf of that tenant. So I negotiate with these guys, and we work together in a sense, but I'm on this side of the equation trying to get, like I said, the best financial terms and best package, the concession package for the tenant.
It makes perfect sense. And I think I've shared with you before, Craig, that I've been in business almost 40 years and I've signed a fair share of leases, and I didn't even know there was such a thing as a tenant representative. I think I'm fairly knowledgeable, certainly experienced in the world of office space, but those contracts are intimidating. And as much as I think I know, there's probably much more I don't know. So I think what you do and the value you bring to the world of small business is priceless. Let's drill down a little bit further because the marketplace has changed a lot, Craig, over the past year or so for many reasons, primarily because of COVID. And in my day, when I was signing office leases, it was really a seller's market. I was lucky to get that space in that location or that building. But now, because of COVID and all the new opportunities, there are a lot of wonderful opportunities for small business owners to take advantage of. Tell us how you view the market pre-COVID and what it is you're working with your clients on now as the world opens up again, thanks to the vaccines.
Well, pre-COVID, we were probably in the most landlord-oriented market ever. Beautiful new buildings being built, highest rental rates in downtown Chicago. The Fulton market area was booming. Everybody wanted to be there, and they couldn't build buildings fast enough. Then we hit COVID, which is now obviously about a year ago, and everything stopped on a dime. Leasing activity ground to a halt. Last year in the third quarter compared to the year before, we were down 75% of lease transactions in Chicago. So what that means, combined with the civil unrest we had, the work from home phenomena, obviously COVID, we still have new buildings being built that are coming out of the ground. In last year, we had about 4 million square feet of new buildings delivered, which are about 58% leased. We currently have about 5.5 million square feet of space. It's only 37.5% committed to. So, and combine that with the work from home phenomena, we're going to see companies shrinking their space. So what that means moving forward, if you are a tenant and if you can commit to a lease that's your traditional 5 to 10 years in length, landlords will be competing for your tenancy. And that's my job as a tenant rep broker, is to listen to the tenant, find out what your needs are, take it to the marketplace, and essentially have them give us offers and say how much they want you as the tenant to move into your building. And so we play one off the other. And the decision is always, at the end of the day, the tenants. And I'm there to help guide the process and see them through and essentially hold their hand, especially if they're a new business or a young business that have never done it before. And the nice thing about using a tenant rep is the tenant doesn't pay us, the landlord does. So if a tenant goes into negotiation unrepresented, they leave money on the table every time. I've been doing this for 37 years. I've seen it from both sides of the table. And the reason is sometimes a landlord or sometimes a tenant, you know, they have their business to run, and signing a lease and negotiating can be a very time consuming activity. So they try to make it into what I sometimes call an administrative activity. So they go to the landlord and they say, hey, Mr. Landlord person, we're in COVID, you should cut my rate. And the landlord says, you know what, you're right. I'll cut the rate. I'm taking $2 off, and I'm really a nice guy. I'm going to steam clean your carpets, and I'm going to paint your kitchen. The tenant goes, great, I'm done. We're done. I'm on to the next thing. I can afford that. I'm good for 5 years. Meanwhile, tenant rep brought a similar size transaction to the building. That tenant got 5 months of free rent. They got $5 off the rental rate, and the landlord had to build out their new space with glass fronts on their offices, beautiful stainless steel appliances in the kitchen. Probably spent $40, $50 a square foot to build out this space. They only spent about $5 on the tenant space. So in other words, long story short, they left money on the table by not using someone like me, by not having that market knowledge and industry knowledge on their side of the table.
Oh my gosh, Craig, I was taking a couple of notes while you were talking. You touched on so many important points. Let me try and pull just on one or two strings because of our limited amount of time. You're not only working with people who are looking for new office space, whether they're first-time tenants or possibly expanding their business or whatever. You're actually working, if I understood you correctly, with a tenant, let's say, in a large office building who may need to renegotiate a lease. Is that correct, Craig? Did I hear you correctly?
You did. You captured it well. Actually, I use 3 words: renew, relocate, and renegotiate.
And the second thing, that's priceless. The second thing you mentioned, I want to make sure I understood you correctly. It doesn't cost me anything if I retain your services. Did I hear you correctly?
Yep. And post-COVID, I think we're going to see a lot of that number 3, the renegotiation side. But the number 2 that you mentioned, the renewal, every tenant's lease expires sooner or later. So assuming they stay in business, they have to do one of those 3 things. If they renew using a broker on their side, again, there's 2 sides of the transaction, the landlord rep and the tenant rep. If you go in unrepresented, this person earns the full commission. If you go in together, we share in that. So put that aside. You're trying to send a message to the landlord that says, hey, I've got legs, I've got knowledge, I can move if you don't do X, Y, and Z. So the landlord is incentivized to keep the tenant because they know if you move out, that space is going to sit vacant for 6, 9, 12 months. Next deal coming in is probably going to have a broker anyway, because about 85% of deals in downtown Chicago have brokers on both sides. They're going to have the free rent still going to be there. The concession package is probably going to be bigger because they're going to have to spend more to retrofit the space rather than just spruce up your space a little bit. So it's very, very cost effective for the landlord to work with us. And I like to say a win-win-win scenario. Tenant gets a better deal. Landlord gets to keep a tenant. Broker gets to create a relationship that wins for all parties.
Craig, regretfully, I could talk about this forever because I'm learning as I'm speaking with you, and I'm sure our viewers are as well. But we've got less than 1 minute left. So I want to squeeze in one last question.
Sure.
As we both mentioned a moment ago, there is no downside. There's no cost to somebody reaching out to you to pick your brain for a free consultation, and there's no cost to them if they do retain your services. As you've mentioned, or I hear you mentioning, you've been in the industry for decades. So you not only understand how to represent a tenant well, but you also know the marketplace. Am I correct, Craig, in assuming that there's a benefit to working with a guy like Craig Nadborne because Craig understands the market and he probably knows some of those larger office buildings or complexes. He knows what deals can be made. You're in a better position going in representing a client from a position of knowledge, experience, and strength than a client or a potential tenant going in on their own. Am I understanding that correctly, Craig?
Yep, absolutely. In fact, I specialize in helping clients. Most of my clients are about 4 to 40 employees, about 1,000 to 10,000 square feet of space. I like to use the baseball analogy. I'm going to go to the Hall of Fame hitting singles and doubles, not home runs and grand slams. But in addition to that, Bradford, my company, we've got 20 brokers plus throughout Chicagoland. So landlords market to us. They want us to bring their tenants, and through the collective knowledge of everybody in the office, not only is it my knowledge, but it's the knowledge of everybody. We know what the marketplace bears. We know what the rental rate should be. We know what the last deal in the building was. So we make sure that you get every penny on your side of the transaction and get the best deal possible.
All right, Craig, we are out of time. The ball game is over for today, but we're going to meet again. Please promise me you'll come back as a returning guest so we can continue this very important discussion for the benefit of small business owners. And so you can update us a few months from now of how the market is changing and developing and what opportunities are available. In the meantime, Craig, oh, it'll be my pleasure. In the meantime, if any of our viewers would like to reach out to you for that free confidential, no cost or obligation consultation, what's the best way to reach you?
Company name is Bradford Allen. My email is my first letter, last name, cnadborne@bradfordallen.com. My phone number is 312-994-5796.
Awesome, Craig. Thanks again. Well, we are out of time. I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy day. And I want to ask anybody who's watching this show if they'd like to be a guest on Spotlight on Small Business and shine a spotlight on your small business, just send an email to team@powernetworkingteam.com and we'll make those arrangements right away. And be sure to tune in every week for a new episode of Spotlight on Small Business. Until then, good luck and good networking.